welcome to Community Conversation. I'm Pastor Jonathan Hawk, and I am the discipleship pastor here at Christ Community. And today I am interviewing Rudy James Carley. And so just really excited to have him in here today. And today we're going to talk about racism. It's just something that has really taken the world, especially the United States, by surprise this year. It just seems like things have really, in a huge way, have gotten out of control. There's been rioting. There's been so much happening in politics. There's been a lot happening just with the COVID situation. And so I've asked Rudy to come in today and just help us to understand a little bit more of what's going on. And so, Rudy, why don't you go ahead and just share a little bit about who you are and for everyone, and then we'll get into today's conversation.
Rudy James. I serve here at Christ Community Church for the last, 18 years or so. I run several ministries here. Do sound. I have 3 kids. And I'm married to a beautiful woman named Ellie, who I met coming to church here. So this is home.
So Rudy, the reason I wanted to talk with you today is because there's just so much information out there right now, and a lot of people are like, this racism, this, all this stuff that's happening. And honestly, on social media, you don't really know what to believe. You don't know what to think about all this, And so what I love about you is your perspective as a believer, a member of our community, and also that you're Black, that you have a different perspective than we do. And so I look at myself and I realize I don't really even have that many Black friends. And so when I look out at the community and I look out at all the rioting, I'm like, what's the big deal? What's going on? I've rarely ever seen anyone being racist to another person. And part of it may be just the fact that I don't have that many Black friends. But I was hoping that maybe you would help bring a little light into this situation. Because, at least from my perspective, when I think of even California, I think, man, we're not known as being a racist state. I'm sure there's something like that going on down in the South, and, down in the bayou or whatever. But here in California, I mean, there's so much diversity. Like, really, is racism even really going on here in California?
Yes.
I mean, tell me about maybe your first experience in that.
Well, my first experience, I was raised in California. So as a child, my first experience was pretty dramatic for me. I was 10 years old, and I was right into basketball practice, and there was a large street that I had to ride on, and the street was large, like Imperial Avenue, a very large street where a 10-year-old boy is not allowed to ride in traffic. So I rode on the sidewalk like most little boys do. And as I was going to basketball practice after school, a cop cut me off and pulled me over. And being 10 years old, I didn't get it whatsoever. I was clueless. And he put me in the back of his car, and he was trying to find out who I am. But as a 10-year-old, I had no ID. So he was trying to track down who I was. And in the end, I was back there, I guess, I want to say about 5 minutes, which was an eternity for me at the time. And in the end, he gave me a ticket for riding on the wrong side of the road on the sidewalk, and I went home. And he was pretty intimidating to me back in the day. And I was very frightened, and I went home, and at first I gave it to my mother, the ticket. At first she laughed that I got a ticket riding a bike. Then I told her what happened, and she got very angry. And that's when my first interaction. Why would you give a 10-year-old a ticket for right on the sidewalk on a busy street? And so my parents contacted NAACP, and I had to go to court. And that was a learning experience for me because I didn't understand. I didn't know why they did that to me, because all my friends, everybody on the team did the same path. But as looking back, I was the only Black kid there. But I didn't think of myself as Black at all, still don't. So... And when I went to court, the reaction to everybody in the audience, the booing, the anger, they're really like, wow. And I didn't understand it all at the time, but as I grew up, I realized that's how it started, my first harassment from the police.
And that was here in California, right?
That was in San Diego.
And Were there a bunch of other kids riding home, and you were like singled out?
Yeah. Everybody was going. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what was so weird about it.
And then as you grew up, did things kind of go along that route too? Did you see more racism?
I saw it here and there, but I just learned to deal with it correctly. It's a matter of how you had to do it, and I wasn't raised to be hateful.
Yeah.
And so that helped me along the way. And I grew up in that time in a very mixed community because we was all Navy brats. Mm-hmm. So Navy, as you know, is every race in the book. So we wasn't raised up like that. That kind of stood out. Mm-hmm.
Well, I did live in North Carolina a little while, and I've been down to Georgia in different places, and you hear, you see racism, and it seems to be right in your face.
Yeah.
People don't mind saying things about black people, but how is it different there than it is here in California?
I think in California, we're more politically correct. That attitude is frowned upon here, whereas in some areas of the South, it's getting to that point now. But just a few years back, it was okay just to blurt whatever you want to say. But now, even there, they had to watch their tongues, guard their tongues a little bit.
Yeah. You have a really interesting perspective because you also used to be a fireman, right?
Yes.
So, this year, this whole, Black Lives Matter has really just, got blown way up. Everybody knows about that. Everyone knows about, like all of a sudden there is defund the police, and so tell me a little bit about like your perspective, like what appears to be like hatred against the cops from the blacks. Like what's going on there?
From my perspective, defund the police is utterly ridiculous. It just wouldn't serve our community. When you're looking at the police as a whole and you're talking about defunding them as a whole, it's not all the police that are that way. It's very few. But those few that are prejudiced and antagonize others need to be identified and taken out. I think as a Christian, as a man, I don't believe no one has the right to take anyone else's life. And I believe as a policeman or even as a fireman, my job depends on saving lives, not taking lives.
Right.
And as a fireman, I've seen police take lives.
Tell me about that. I remember
I've seen people shot in the back. I've seen people beat up for very small reasons, and I was blown away that it was never made the news. But this is a common occurrence.
So you're telling me on multiple occasions you have seen an African American man running away and getting shot in the back as he's running away.
They called 911 as the bullet goes in. Not 911. They call first responders, and then we come there and I've seen guys. Why you shoot me in the back? And I've seen it many times and never be on the news. But now, what makes it different is, and the only difference is now everyone has video capabilities, a camera, a phone. So now it's coming to public eye. Whereas all that time before, you couldn't prove it wasn't documented. But now you see it. And now it's becoming a bigger deal as more and more is seen. But all what you see has always been going on. You raised knowing where to go, how to hide, how to deal with a police officer. And then, again, I have to stress repeatedly, it's not all of them. It's just a few bad ones. Right.
So what you're saying is the reason that things are like this year, in big part, is because of the George Floyd case, right? Because it was so visual, you saw it right there on camera, and you knew exactly what was happening.
Yes. And I guess in our black community, we're always aware of that going on. You're raised to recognize that going on. It was to the point where I grew up, which areas to go into, which areas, areas even in the city of El Centro have markers of where blacks can't go and where they can go back in the day. And we're just aware of it, where others don't have to be, so they're not.
Hey, tell me about a little bit when you were a fireman. You were talking about one time you were trying to save an old lady. Tell me about that experience.
Okay.
Because that's racism to the max.
Yeah. I was a firefighter, and I did it to save lives. And as you're a firefighter, you're working on the fire, whatever. the last thing on your mind is what color you are, how tall you are, how much you weigh. Those are things that you're not thinking about. You're just thinking about saving that life. So an older lady, I'm guessing around in her 70s. Back in the day, they called 911. She's having a heart problem, so they called 911, and we came. The four of us come running in. I'm the firefighter, so I'm the one with the first aid kit to take her vitals and check her airway and all those things. Well, I was the first one through the door just by the luck of the draw. My partner was right behind me. And I run to this lady to find out, ma'am, are you okay? And she said, stopped me, and she said, I don't want that nigger touching me. And now, first off, I forgot I was black. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks, like, what? And I just stopped, and she was adamant that she didn't want me touching me. Now, this woman is dying. And she was adamant that she didn't want me to touch her, so I had to respect her. I just started backing up out of respect for her age. And then the other firefighter, everyone was stunned. And so the other firefighter had to go talk to her. And then my captain, I remember, scolded her about talking to me in that manner, that we're just here to save her life. But to me, I just thought, what kind of hate is that you're willing to die before you let this man touch me? And it just, people are raised that way. They had that much hatred in their body. They're willing to die for it. And that's just amazing to me.
That is crazy. They're like, I'd rather die than have a black man help me. That was wild.
I've never seen such a thing before in my life.
You know, and I think it's so important not only to have this conversation, but I remember just the first time we started interacting, you sounded so surprised that there's people out there that are, in a sense, unaware of the racism that's really going on. Yeah. Because, like, from my perspective, you know, I'm sitting here, you hear the news, you hear all this rioting, all this stuff that's going on, and I'm saying to myself, like, what's going on? Yeah, one person experienced a racist situation, but I mean, that's thousands of miles away. Yeah. Like, I look and I'm like, I don't see the racism around me. I don't experience it. And so in my mind, the racism, of course, I wouldn't deny that it's here, but I would say that it's very, very, very small. Yeah. But in another thing, though, is my wife, one of her best friends, is black. And she's talked to me about times where she was like in a line to buy, to pay for their food. And she was there with her friend. And the lady there looked right past her and said, I'll get your ticket next. And then when she comes up to finally pay, she looks at my wife and she goes, are you going to help her pay for that or what? You know, just kind of just demeaning her, just looking down like, surely you can't pay for your own meal. Yeah. And, and Ashley's friend wasn't, poorly dressed or anything like that, and so it just was just very blatant. Yeah. And I think part of the problem is a lot of us don't have African American friends. Yeah. Because if we did, we'd understand more of what's going on. Yeah. And so that's why when we look at the story, we think, man, why is everyone getting all worked up about this? I'm not racist. I don't know any of my friends that are racist. And in the end, I think we miss it. And from your perspective, you're saying racism's all around me. I see it often, and it's just a difference of perspective. We don't see that. So I really felt it was important to talk with you today, not only for us to understand where you're at, but also for African Americans to understand. Like sometimes, in a way, we're just ignorant. We haven't had those experiences, or we're not as blended with the African American community. So I think maybe there could be a lot of confusion even with something like Kaepernick kneeling. What do you think about the whole situation?
You really enlightened me when you didn't understand it's all around us like it is. To me, it's like, what do you mean? The sky's not blue?
Right.
But you explained to me that some people just don't see it. And that amazes me right now. It still amazes me. Kaepernick, I like what I saw the other day. It had a picture of him kneeling, and it was a banner that said, "Do you understand now?" Because the whole time it was never about the police. It was trying to bring attention to an issue right there. It was not about hating the police, disrespecting the police, or anything. It was strictly to bring attention to what you was never seen before. and that we see every day, and we're at risk. Our children are at risk. Our families are at risk just because of it. And a lot of people just don't want to acknowledge the truth of it. Me, when I see someone die, like that gentleman, his knee was on his neck, I think of a family member or my child or my father. Every single one of them, because it could happen to us just like that. So when you have a son, you have to teach them about this. I have no choice but teach my sons how to carry themselves and deal with police in different situations. They have to learn it. And personally, my father taught me the same way, and I'm comfortable with all. And as my sons, yet when the script changes, they're ready to deal with the situation when it goes bad as well.
Yeah.
And some people are better at that than others.
So you feel like there's already, like, you have to teach your kids actually how to talk to a policeman when you get pulled over.
Oh, yeah. I got to teach you from the kindergarten how to deal with that. The little kids see, it happens in kindergarten because it comes from the parents. It's passed down. And so my son will come home and say, Daddy, what? Why he call me a nigger? I'm like, oh, snap. Now I got to go find this kid and find it. Not the kid. It's the parents. Mm-hmm. I had to go through that with both my sons and tell them how to deal with that correctly.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a horrible thing.
You know, sometimes I wonder if part of it is just the color of the skin. Your skin gives people just this image, this thought that, you know, like, I need to be wary. You know, like, I was looking at the statistics here on you know, from this is kind of from an interesting perspective, but the Bureau of Justice says a black man, it says 28.5 black men serve in prison in comparison to 4.4 white men, 6 times higher. You know, when you look at statistics like this, it honestly, it breaks my heart. You know, I look at this, I'm like, man, this is really tragic. This is really sad that, you know, you see so many African Americans, and I think sometimes people, if they don't know them, if they haven't built a relationship with them, they just look and they just kind of put them in that category like, man, you're black, like, I need to be more cautious. Like, yeah. You know, and do you think like something like that's kind of going on that
always been going on? Here's the thing, we have different cultures, period, in the conversation. Those who I believe who interact badly with police or other people are locked into our culture. And the best way to survive is a mix. Place is a mix. I have to be able to get along with your culture, Hispanic culture, all kind of. Our country is mixed with a lot of different cultures, and our culture for some reason is intimidating to some because we may not speak the same language, but we do it in a different manner. Whereas other people speak Spanish or French or Japanese or whatever. Our cultures we talk a little bit different, and they don't understand that sometimes.
Tell me about a situation where you were at work and all of a sudden it switched. You had a bunch of white people you were working with, and then you had a bunch of black people.
Oh, it's one of my most blessed events in my life, actually. I had a best friend that was a white guy. He was my partner in the fire department, and as a partner, he was like everything to me. We risked our lives together, but he was a white guy. I loved him dearly. He stood up for me in my wedding. But anyway, I worked in the station when it was 8 people, and it was regularly 3 of us were black. Well, one day, people called in sick, and then all of a sudden, the guys who came in and replaced the sick guys who called in sick were all black. And so all of a sudden, my friend was in a station with 8 guys, and he was the only white guy. And we started talking like we always talk because we realized we could. And then we started deciding dinner and food to eat and everything else. And he's like looking around because he didn't understand what we were saying. It was like we were speaking a different language. And I thought it was hysterical. And I just watched him learn because he's a really great guy to this day. Mm-hmm. And then like at dinner, we sat down to eat dinner. And he said, man, it's different in here. I said, and I knew what he was talking about, but I'm like, really? How is it different? He said, look, I feel like I'm a sore thumb in here, man. You guys talk and eat different foods and do all this stuff different. I feel like I'm in an alien place like that. And then I was waiting for it. I knew he was going to get there. And I said, my friend, that's how I am every day.
Wow.
I have to adapt to you guys all the time. Now you're learning to adapt to what I am. And that made our bond even get stronger because he saw the whole picture. A lot of people are trapped in not seeing the whole picture. He had to see that whole picture because as a fireman, we work as a group. So he had to fit in, and that's a lot of work. And just like people, we're a nation. We should do that all, but a lot of people don't have that available to them to experience that.
I've gotten a little bit of an experience of that living in Thailand. You're going in from being American, having a way of thinking, and you jump into their culture.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're the thumb sticking out, and everybody's like, they all see you, they're all looking around, and they scrutinize everything you do. Oh my goodness.
Everything's different.
And sometimes, in our American culture, you come and, you call, hey, can I come over to your house? Can I, that kind of deal. No, we had people come and just come crash our house, whenever they want to. Just come over. We went on vacation. We had people come in and play with our toys. Now, that should be a cultural shock right there, like, seriously? Did that just happen? You just make yourself at home, And so they're more communal. And I love, when coming back, my wife and I, we miss that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes white people are just kind of like, we stick in our own little space, in our own little place. And when we come back, and the more I think we do that, we feel like, what is our culture? And we have a deeper appreciation for other cultures. And really the African-American culture is a culture within the American culture. And it's different. And the way you think, the way you act is different.
What we eat.
Yeah. And it's awesome. I think it's amazing. When we come back, my wife has really had some joy in hanging out with the Mexican culture, because they are so remind her a lot of Thailand. She walked down the aisle and the Mexican ladies would be like, oh, they see our kids, and they want to touch them, they want to say hi, and other people are normal Americans are just like, hey, kind of keep your distance, especially in this COVID situation.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting, it's good, and I really think we could really benefit if we mix more, we're able to connect more and appreciate each other's differences. Because I'm telling you, hanging out with you, Rudy, dude, you're a lot of fun, man. You're a lot of fun. I love it, And so I want to ask you this. Black Lives Matter. It's one of those things that if you look at it and you just see what it is, it's basically saying the Black Lives Matter. We can understand that. We can get behind what I just said there, but the movement as a whole, I mean, what do you think of that?
I have to look at that more from my Christian standpoint. The Black Lives Matter. The ideal behind it is wonderful to enlighten folks and know that we're all the same, yet we're different and accept different cultures. That's the big deal behind it. Yet, it's an agenda behind some of that doesn't relate to my interaction with different races or accepting of our different cultures. Some of the agenda is off base. And it's scary to me. It's like they're using a subject matter to get something else across entirely. Are they going to help our interracial interaction? I don't see it. I see a lot of hate in it. I don't see it as a Christian because I can follow something with hate involved in it. That's not what the Bible teaches us. So when you go out destroying people's property or causing a lot of conflict, I don't feel that's the way to go. I'd rather follow Martin Luther King than Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. You understand? I don't think death or killing or shooting or some of the fighting is going to bring us together. I think time and trust is going to bring us together.
Now, this may not be a popular comment, but I think sometimes when we look at someone that supports like Black Lives Matter, there could be people that have different views on even a subject like that, or Kaepernick kneeling, right? Let's take Kaepernick, for instance. We look at him kneeling, and for a lot of white people, they see, oh, you hate this country. Mm-hmm. But when you look at it, that's not really what you see.
Not at all.
But there could be people that are supporting this Well, tell me a little bit about how you view that. Like Kaepernick, is it more of just awareness, or does he?
I think when they're looking at those people for hating of the country, they're looking for something that's not there. They're putting their own ideas into why he's kneeling, or maybe even that's why I would kneel. You know, but I guess it's easier to look at those reasons than the reason is looking at the way they're killing so many people out there on the streets. People shooting up a whole house, a lady in her sleep. There's so many. I mean, there was a lady who went to the wrong apartment and shot the guy. He was scared. She was scared. The black guy was in it. And these things go on so far. Those are just the ones that get in the limelight. And he's just trying to bring attention because he has that forum to it's a problem. Look, I'm just saying there's a problem. I'm still respecting the flag. I'm on my knee. There's a problem, and it's so important to him that he's willing to take the flag that there is a problem. Look at the problem. But it's easier for people to look at him as the problem instead of the problem of the people out there dying.
Right.
Because that's the reality, and no one want to look at that. All those people dying. And this didn't just start yesterday or last year. This has been going on forever. It's gotten better, and it's still this bad. And so it's easier to look at that as him and he's the problem than there's some bad cops out there killing folks for fun.
And I think what I'm trying to get at here in this is you can look at some people are actually maybe taking a knee because they don't like the country. And some of them are maybe taking a knee just in saying, I protest what I'm seeing. And with the Black Lives Matter, you got some people saying, I don't buy into the message of Black Lives Matter, but does it make sense? I think some people, just because we hear somebody saying, I'm for Black Lives Matter, doesn't mean that they necessarily hold to everything that they're saying.
Exactly.
And I think what I've seen so much is that there's polar opposites. I am either in this camp and I hate everything that they're doing, or I'm in this camp and there's no in between. There's no
This is not black and white.
There's a lot more to it. And I think there's just been so much hatred build up from one side to the other. Yeah. You know, Democrat, Republican. And for us as Christians, we got to look at this and say, you know what? Some of the things that Democrats may have a heart for may not be as bad. You know, there's Democrats out there that are pro-life. Yeah. There are Democrats that want to help the poor legitimately, and they feel like that's a venue, an avenue. And you can't just look and just say, okay, you're for Black Lives Matter, and think that you suddenly know and understand everything that they're thinking of. You really have to sit down and talk with them and look at them, because there's so much stuff that's happening. And so I think it's important, like, you know, for white people, when they see someone like Kaepernick kneeling or someone else kneeling, and say, what really is the motivation behind that? Because there's some people out there that I'm sure they grab those maybe few percentages of people out there that are truly proclaiming the wrong message, and they're saying, this is how the whole movement or the group is. And that's not always the case. No. You know, and so we look at defund the police, which, you know, people are thinking, oh, that's the idea there is to just wipe out all policemen, and I don't think that's necessarily even their message either. You know, and so I think most people would realize, hey, you know, taking police completely out is not necessarily the best. I think a lot of people, when they maybe say that, say, I want reform, or I want to set it up a little different. I'm not sure of all the details there, but what I'm getting at there is I think there needs to be a sense of what are you communicating, what really is your heart, and just because people say stuff, realize that doesn't mean that's just because the movement may be that way, that person there may not be believing all those things. You know, like I think Walt was meeting with the leader of the chapter here, and he's like, I'm pro-life, you know, but I'm with Black Lives Matter. The movement itself may be going a certain direction, but that doesn't mean that's my personal conviction. And that's, I think, unfortunate, because something like Black Lives Matter, if you look at the message and say, Black Lives Matter, I think we can all come behind that message. Yeah. But when you're saying you got to be pro-choice, when you got to, you know, and they have all this other agenda with it, it's something that you're like, I can't walk with that message. I can't go there.
The point that a lot of people get angry at people who say Black Lives Matter, And they think we're saying red lives don't matter, brown lives don't matter, yellow lives don't matter. That's not true at all. Could be further from the point. The point is, these people are dying matter.
Yeah.
Not taking away anything from anyone else, but they like to say, why is it just your lives that matter? No one's saying that. But they like to say that, use it for an argument point. But no one's ever saying that.
I want to make this a little bit more personal here, okay? Bring this in a little bit closer to us here in Imperial Valley, all right? So here you are. You're on staff here at Christ Community. You're in this church. Do you see any racism potentially here in the church, or maybe like what do you see? Do you see like caution because you're black?
Well, it's more along the lines of caution. I'm a formidable guy, so I'm not the type of guy that people will walk up to and say anything nasty to.
You're a big guy.
All right, so that was a blessing. I don't have the words to tell you how big a blessing it is. I avoided a lot of stuff in life because of that. But I do ministry here, and as you know, color doesn't matter to me. So I have a ministry called Iron Man. I don't choose the boys by the color of their skin, nor do I care one way or the other. And I'll be with kids, and sometimes all the kids will be Hispanic. Sometimes all the kids will be white. Sometimes be mixed. But all of them are my kids, and I treat them the same way. And I've been places with my boys who treat me like that father figure that I am to them. And I've seen people just look and go, whoa, what's going on there? And then the boys even recognize it, and they make fun of it. They'll come hug me when they see it. They sense it. They come over and look, you know. But I was raised to believe that that's not my problem. You know what I mean? I was created to love folks, and I teach all my boys to love folks, and the color don't even come in the conversation. I just like how tall they are, don't come in the conversation. So that's, but occasionally I do see it here. It's kind of sad, you know, and I think it's like what you told me. Some people are inexperienced in dealing with a black man. And once they get to know me a little bit, they see I'm just, what I am is just a man, you know. And I've seen that change over some people, and I found it pleasant. You know, I have some good friends like that. They just didn't know. I see the wonder in their eye, and then the conclusion. Then I see the times where, since I work with kids' church, I'd be at Walmart and some little kid would come running, Rudy, come grab my leg. And I see the look on their father's face, and they see this big old giant black guy hugging their daughter. And I think that's funny. I'm sorry, I'm just going to laugh because they don't know what to do with it. Now, so that's just Christ Community Church.
You know, in a lot of people's defense, you know, having their kid go up and hug any stranger can make them kind of go, hey, take a step back, going like, hey, who is this person?
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's true, but I see fear sometimes. And I think it's funny. So this is, I think, an important question. Have white people kind of come across as racist, maybe unintentionally? And if so, like, how do they do that? I don't know. I've been around mixed crowds all my life, so things wouldn't bother me as much as it would bother other blacks. Sometimes somebody tried to shake my hand, something simple as that, and they're trying to shake it like I would shake a hand of a black man, and they see it on TV, I guess, I don't know, and they try to shake my hand, and me, I love the Lord, I'm full of joy, and I'll laugh at them. Okay, and I'll give a clap. I know what you're trying to do, but that's not it. But there are others out there, I can't speak for every black man, some black men take it as an insult. You know, so I see efforts, and most of the time I take it as people just trying to understand me. You know, trying to understand me, and I think that's cool. But yeah, I see some crazy stuff sometimes. Sometimes, I guess when I'm older now, so things that would have made me mad when I was a teenager, I'll laugh at now. You know? Yeah. But yeah, not much here though. This church is off the hook, man. It's just the best. That's why this is home.
Yeah, that's good.
We're so mixed, it's crazy. My sister's white. I had to throw that in there.
So let me kind of leave us with this last thought. And where do you feel like all this media attention on everything that's happening now, do you feel like we're headed in the right direction with racism? Or
I think it's wonderful for everything to come to light. Mm-hmm. I think once everything's in the light, we can pull it apart and fix it. All the stuff they were doing in the darkness, the beatings, the killings and everything, now you have to watch yourself doing it. And hopefully the officers that are hateful, the businesses owners that are hateful, they be removed and maybe even learn that behavior is incorrect. You know what I mean? The person that will fill their slot would know that's not the correct way to handle another human being. Mm-hmm. So bringing it to a light is only great for everyone. I would love not to have to tell my grandson how to live in this country. And about far as running from God. When you teach a black kid how to stay out of trouble with a white officer, you teaching them caution and mm-hmm. fear of another person just because they're white, and that's inappropriate. You know what I mean? So I think this is bringing everything's good coming to the light. Mm-hmm. Everything's good, and how we deal with it, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But bringing everything to the light, I think is fantastic because it's been in darkness, man, since slavery. It's always been done, but as time went on, they started burying it and hiding it, and they're really good at it now. But I think it's time for it all of it to go. And it's not like it was back in the day, but it's time for all of it to go, you know. And it's still some. It's scary, but in a lot of pockets, it's completely gone. Mm-hmm. You know, I watched my children grow up with friends that I didn't care what color their friends were, and they had their uncles. My friends were all different races, and I see that being the way we're going. But we got some bumps in the road still.
You know, I think one real positive, too, is the fact that a lot of the police officers have to have cameras on them.
Yes.
You know, it's you can't get away with stuff like that, you know. And so where there's few cops that are racist, you know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, again, racism isn't simply shooting a person in the back.
No.
It's the way that you treat and the way that you act towards certain people, you know, prejudice towards them, you know, which is important, too, to realize that.
It's just a minority of the cops, very few. But if you got a department of 500, if you got 5 in there that are bad, that's enough to do some serious damage. So it's a very small amount, but yeah.
But and I think the important takeaway too is for, you know, a lot of white people, when they think of racism, you know, we think, oh, it's so small, it's like, mm-hmm. you know, 0.00001%, you know, and you know, like a white person's not gonna say there isn't racism. It's just gonna say it's really small because I've never experienced it. Whereas when you look at it, you're saying, yeah, it's small. It may be 2 or 3%. You know what? Enough to make you cautious of saying, you know what? Most black people, even here in California, are going to experience it at certain points in their life. You know, multiple times. Oh yeah. You know, and when you realize that, you go, whoa, this is a bigger deal than I ever gave to it. And it's important for us to realize that is the world that you live in. Yeah. When I see a cop, when I look at a cop, I'm thinking, man, was I speeding or what was I doing? When you look at a cop, you're like, hands on the wheel, man. I make sure I don't reach over for my license because they're going to think I'm...
got a gun.
Yeah, that guy got a gun.
That guy's got a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to use it.
Yeah.
I'm a big guy. They wouldn't want to take me on hand in hand.
Right. And I think a very, you know, like a really eye-opening thing for me was the fact that you've actually seen people shot on multiple occasions in the back by police officers.
Or beat up. Mostly beat up. But about 3 or 4 shot.
But still, for me, I think that should almost never happen. People should not see those kind of experiences. And the fact that you've seen as much as you have makes me think, wow, this is a much bigger issue than I have realized. Because when I look at like the George Floyd, I'm like, okay, great, they found 1 in a million, you know, out there. Yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that. But why all this rioting for one guy? And what you're saying is that's not the case.
News, bro.
That is not the case. No. So much of what we're seeing isn't making the news.
No.
So, you know,
I've never seen anything bad like that happen went on the news.
Yeah. It just gives me, I think, a big takeaway is being able to have a heart of compassion and understanding and saying, you know what, I see what this issue is. Yeah. And I don't want to be that person that's just all angry and saying, you know, you're making a big deal out of nothing. I want to be compassionate and sensitive and, you know, and really support harmony, you know, between black and white people. And I think a big part of that is understanding one another, learning how to love and really, in a sense, be colorblind, you know, but not so that you don't respect cultures, you know. You don't want to. We want to enjoy the amazing parts of who you are, you know. We want to rejoice in that because that's how God made us. He made us all kinds of different colors.
I love different cultures, man. As a fireman, I used to love it because it's been different type of foods all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think we should embrace one another.
It's true.
It's easier to love our differences. You know, we're all the same, but we just got different ways of expressing ourselves.
So, tell me if you agree with this, but I feel like maybe one of the best ways to help bring greater unity is just really getting to know it and being friends with each other, you know?
That's it.
Yeah.
I've had many times get to know some white guys who, before they met me, had difficulties with other blacks, and they say to me, well, you're easy to get along with. And, oh, man, I'm just a regular guy. You just seen me as a regular guy rather than being so intimidated by my color or my size. You know what I mean? And when they drop, I've seen after a while, they start dropping that, and then all of a sudden their friends, they stop cutting off who their friends are not, or choosing by the color of the skin. You know? Just a regular guy, man.
Well,
you know?
I'm glad to have gotten to know you.
Yeah.
And what are you doing tomorrow night for dinner? I'm just kidding.
I'll be working.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for coming in and letting me get to talk with you. And I think the audience, all you guys out there, I hope you have grown in your understanding a little bit about the issues that are happening around us. I don't want us to walk away from a conversation like this and miss the points that Rudy has brought up, which is basically there's a lot of things going on that maybe a lot of us aren't aware of. And just because we don't have that experience doesn't mean that it's not real. And in a sense, we live in completely different worlds, different fears, and we have different experiences. And so it's important for us to understand what someone like Rudy goes through. And maybe in that we will have a greater heart of understanding and hopefully help bring some unity between the African American and the white group. So thank you for joining us today, and God bless you.